By the time Grant Vale called Leah Turner unstable, more than 2,000 people had seen her face. Someone had photographed her at the Millbrook bus depot before the rain stopped. Leah stood beneath the awning with one hand closed around a brass key. Her only suitcase rested on the pavement between us. In her other hand, she held a folder of letters. The caption read, "Unknown woman arrives in Millbrook to target council candidate's family." Grant shared the post himself. Minutes later, he released a statement. "My wife and I are cooperating with law enforcement regarding an emotionally distressed individual attempting to create a relationship that never existed." He never used Leah's name. He did not need to. Then her phone rang. "Grant, I told her not to answer." She put him on speaker. His voice was soft, controlled, almost sympathetic. "You need to leave Millbrook before you embarrass yourself any further." Leah tightened her fist around the key. "You mailed me this." Grant said nothing. "You promised me a home." "No," he replied. "You invented one." The deputy beside us looked away. That was the moment Grant expected her to break. If she cried, she was unstable. If she became angry, she was dangerous. If she stayed silent, he could finish writing the story for her. Instead, Leah turned to me. "I have nowhere left to go. I had an empty house, a dead wife's rooms I had not entered in 18 months, and a pre-transfer certification locked inside my office. Grant Vale's name was at the top. My signature was at the bottom. Helping Leah would connect me to her scandal. Refusing would leave her alone inside a lie I knew how to recognize. I lifted her suitcase. "Then you're not leaving town tonight," I said. "You can stay at my house." Grant was still listening. His polished voice cracked. "Mason, don't let her use that key at the Cedar House north of your place." Leah froze. So did I. I had told Grant I was taking her to my house. I had never mentioned the Cedar property 3 miles north. And according to the pre-transfer certification bearing my signature, Grant Vale had sworn he had no access to that property before the transfer. The call ended with a clean click. Deputy Hall looked from Leah to me. Rain ticked against his hat. "You know what he meant?" "No." The lie came too easily. Leah heard it. Her eyes moved to my face, but she did not challenge me. Hall had known me since high school. That history bought me a few seconds of trust. "Grant reported repeated unwanted contact," he said. "He says she may approach his residence." "I came because he told me to," Leah said. Her thumb kept rubbing the edge of the key. She opened the folder. The top page was a printed email. "June 14, Millbrook, Depot. I'll be there before your bus arrives." Grant's name sat beneath it. Hall read without touching the page. "Emails can be fabricated. So can statements," I said. He gave me a warning look. Leah closed the folder. "Am I under arrest?" "No." "Then I'm leaving." Hall stepped aside. "Do not go near the Vale residence. Do not contact him again tonight. Save anything he sends." Grant had already seized the official language. Contact. Residence. Distressed individual. Each word made Leah sound less like a woman who had crossed 3 states to meet the man she planned to marry, and more like a threat the town needed to contain. I carried her suitcase to my truck. She followed with the folder against her ribs. Rain had flattened loose strands of hair against her cheek. Her navy coat was too thin for a Montana storm. When I opened the passenger door, she stopped. "You don't know me. That makes 2 of us. You lied to a deputy." I left something out. That is usually what people call lying. There was no accusation in her voice, only fatigue. "You can take the apartment over my garage," I said. "Separate entrance. Working lock. In the morning, I'll point you towards somewhere else." That almost made her smile. The drive to Willow Road took 12 minutes. Grant's post traveled faster. My phone vibrated 7 times before we cleared town. I left it face down in the cup holder. Leah watched the black fields beyond the window. "How long has your house been empty?" "It isn't empty." "You said it was." "I live there." "I meant the rooms." "Why are they empty?" The mailbox appeared in the headlights. I slowed for the turn. "My wife died 4 years ago." Leah faced forward. "I'm sorry. I hated that sentence. People used it because silence frightened them." "She hated wasted rooms," I said. The house stood at the end of the gravel drive, dark except for the porch light. 2 stories. White siding. 6 windows across the front. Too much house for one man. "This isn't the house Grant showed me," Leah said. Relief loosened her voice. "No." I parked beside the workshop and handed her a plain steel key. The apartment is through that door. The interior entrance stays locked, unless there's an emergency. What counts as an emergency? Fire, blood, someone breaking in. What about public humiliation? That requires coffee. This time, she smiled. It vanished when headlights slowed near the mailbox. Neither of us moved. The vehicle continued past. I don't know whether I'm scared of him finding me, she said, or scared that he wanted me found. I checked my phone. 9 missed calls. A text from my foreman sat at the top. Mason, why is Grant Vale saying that woman came here because of you? Leah noticed my face. You can still change your mind. So can you. And go where? The question landed between us. I handed her the steel key. She placed it beside the brass one in her palm. One was ordinary and useful. The other had been polished into a promise. Inside the apartment, I turned on the heat and found clean sheets. My wife had labeled the cabinet shelves in black marker. Towels, bulbs, winter blankets. Leah saw the handwriting but asked nothing. She set the folder on the table and released the brass key. It struck the wood with a hard, bright sound. What does Willow Road mean to Grant? I pulled a blanket from the cabinet. I don't know yet. You knew enough to lie. My hand stayed on the folded blanket. I had spent 4 years believing silence prevented damage. It had protected no one. Not my wife in our last argument. Not my employees when Grant asked for one harmless signature. Not Leah at the depot. The property Grant mentioned isn't this house, I said. It's 3 miles north. The one he promised me? I don't know. But you renovated it. Yes. Leah touched the brass key. Will this open it? I should have told her we would find out in the morning. Instead, I picked it up. The mountain-shaped tag turned between my fingers. On the back, beneath Grant's initials, someone had carved a number so small Leah had missed it. W17. I knew that number. It was stamped on the pre-transfer certification in my office, and on the locked file cabinet I had helped Grant move into the house 3 months before he swore he had no access to it. The brass key stayed on the kitchen table all night. I knew because I checked twice. The first time was after 2, when the pipes knocked inside the wall and pulled me out of a shallow sleep. The second was before dawn, when I crossed the hall for water and saw a light beneath the apartment door. Leah was awake too. I did not knock. By 6, rain had settled into a gray mist over Willow Road. I made coffee and stood at the sink while my phone filled with messages I did not open. At 6:12, someone knocked on the interior door. Leah stood there wearing the same clothes from the depot. Her hair was tied back. The folder rested beneath one arm. In her hand was an envelope. I need to pay you. You arrived 8 hours ago. That does not make the room free. She held out $300. I kept both hands around my mug. Put it away. I'm not asking for charity. I'm not offering it. What would you call this? A room nobody uses. Her eyes moved toward the covered furniture in the dining room. My wife's blue vase still sat beneath a film of dust. Leah folded the envelope. People rename charity when they want the person receiving it to feel less ashamed. That sounds rehearsed. It has had practice. She slipped the money back into her folder. I showed her the side entrance, the breaker panel, and the laundry room behind the garage. The workshop was off limits. No visitors. No smoking. No drinking in the apartment. You have a lot of rules for empty rooms, she said. I had none once. It got expensive. That was as close as I came to explaining my life. Her suitcase leaned crookedly near the stairs. One wheel had split at the axle. I carried it into the workshop before she could object. You don't have to fix that. I know. I can manage it. You dragged it across half the depot. It still moved. So does a truck with 3 tires. The corner of her mouth shifted. While I replaced the wheel, Leah sat beside the workbench and sorted the letters by date. Printed emails, travel confirmations, photographs of a cedar house, copies of messages. Grant had built his promises with paperwork. How long? I asked. 8 months. You met him before last night? No. The screwdriver stopped. We spoke every day, she said. Calls, messages. He knew things about Millbrook no stranger would know. No video calls? He said his campaign staff monitored his devices. That made sense to you? No. Her answer came without defense. Then she aligned a page with the edge of the bench. It made enough sense when I needed it to. Rain tapped against the windows. My wife, Anna, used to accuse me of treating silence like a tool, something useful whenever words became dangerous. The morning she died, she had stood beside this same workbench with her car keys in one hand. "You don't keep the peace, Mason," she had said. "You make everyone else fight alone." I had let her leave angry, because answering required admitting she was right. 4 years later, I still knew the sound the garage door made when it closed behind her. Leah touched one of Grant's photographs. He said the east windows were for me. I set the suitcase upright. It rolled cleanly. "What did he say you would do here?" "Keep the books for his development company. Help with community programs after the election." "You're an accountant?" "Bookkeeper. Payroll, audits, small business cleanup." "What happened to your last job?" "My mother got sick. I left to care for her. And after? She died. No decoration. No invitation for sympathy." The apartment refrigerator had contained mustard, baking soda, and 3 bottles of water. By 8:30, I had added eggs, bread, soup, apples, coffee, fine, and milk. Leah found me putting groceries away. "You said this wasn't charity." "It's not. Those apples were becoming a problem. There are 6. They move in groups." She took the soup cans from my hand and shelved them herself. "I will pay rent," she said, "when you know whether you're staying." "I'm not staying." The answer came too quickly. Her suitcase stood repaired beside the door. I understood then. She planned to leave before anyone could decide to send her away. My old instinct offered the easy response. Let her. Respect the choice. Avoid Grant's mess. The phone on the counter buzzed. Leah's shoulders tightened before the screen lit. It was Nora Bell from the boarding house. She had heard Leah might need a room. Heard. The photograph had done its work. Leah asked the weekly rate and wrote it on the back of Grant's campaign flyer. When the call ended, she said, "I can afford 2 weeks. What happens after that?" "I find work." "In a town where 2,000 people met you through his statement?" "I have worked in worse places." "Name one." She did not. Instead, she opened the folder and removed a bank statement. Her hand covered the lower half before I could read it. "I have savings." The movement was small, protective. I recognized it because I had used the same gesture over the pre-transfer certification in my office. "How much did you give him?" I asked. Her face changed by less than an inch. "I didn't say I gave him anything. You didn't have to." She slid the statement beneath the letters. "That is not your concern. You're in my house because he turned your private life into public evidence." "No, I'm in your house because you offered a room. Gratitude is not permission." She said it without heat, which made it harder to dismiss. "You're right." She waited, perhaps expecting an argument. I gave her none. She went inside and locked the door. On my workbench, the brass key remained where she had left it. W17 faced upward. I carried it to my office and unlocked the bottom drawer. The pre-transfer certification lay beneath 3 years of tax records. It stated that no keys, records, or secured materials had been delivered to Grant before the transfer date. I had signed it because he promised the cabinet held only staging invoices, and because my company needed the final payment. Behind the document was a photograph I had forgotten. Grant stood outside the cedar house with one hand on the locked file cabinet. The date was 6 weeks before I signed the pre-transfer certification. I heard the apartment door open. For 1 second, I considered closing the drawer. Then Anna's words returned. "You make everyone else fight alone." I took the photograph and the pre-transfer certification into the hall. Leah stood at the bottom of the stairs, wearing her coat, the folder beneath her arm. "I found a bus leaving at 11, she said. My old answer rose first. "All right." Instead, I held out the photograph. "Before you go, there's a house you need to see." The cedar house stood 3 miles north of my place, beyond a row of cottonwoods and a cattle gate that had not been opened in months. Leah sat beside me with the folder on her lap. The brass key rested on top of it. Neither of us mentioned the 11 o'clock bus. Rain had turned the gravel road dark. When the house appeared between the trees, Leah stopped breathing for a second. "That's it." The words barely carried over the heater. The photograph in Grant's letters had shown summer grass, clean windows, and 2 chairs on the porch. Now weeds pushed through the front steps. One shutter hung crooked. A plastic county notice had been stapled beside the door. Unfinished property. Entry prohibited without authorization. Leah read it twice. He said the inspection was complete. He lied. "You don't know which part yet." She was right. I parked near the detached garage. My company sign had been removed, but 4 screw holes remained in the siding. Leah picked up the brass key. If this opens the door, what does that prove? That he had access. It proves someone mailed me a key. That someone knew which lock it fit. She closed her fingers around it. And if it doesn't, then we leave. You make that sound simple. It won't be. The porch boards creaked beneath our weight. I trounced the steel contractor key I still carried. It did not turn. Grant had changed the lock after my crew finished. Leah inserted the brass key. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the deadbolt slid back. She did not open the door. A drop of rain traveled from her hair to the collar of her coat. He told me I would walk in first, she said. I waited. He said he wanted my first memory of the house to belong to me. Her hand remained on the knob. You can still leave, I said. No, I can stop believing him. That is not the same thing. She pushed the door inward. Cold air met us. The house smelled of sawdust, damp drywall, and rooms sealed too long. Furniture from the staged photographs was gone. Pale rectangles marked where pictures had hung. Leah stepped into the kitchen. There were 3 east-facing windows above the counter. Morning light fell across the unfinished floor in narrow bands. Grant had described those windows to her. He had probably stood exactly where she stood now. She opened one cabinet, then another, empty. On the counter, a dark ring marked the place where a coffee mug had once sat. Someone used this house, she said. I touched the thermostat. The display was dead. Not recently. The office was at the back, behind a door with a keypad lock. My crew had installed it at Grant's request. He said the room would store deeds until the development closed. The keypad had been removed. 4 loose wires protruded from the wall. Leah crouched beside them. Would someone take that off if the house was abandoned? Not unless they wanted to remove the entry record. Her gaze shifted toward me. You knew it kept a record? I installed it. Another omission added itself to the space between us. She stood. What else did you install? A wall safe. Network cables. Security cameras. There were cameras? Exterior only. Were? The housings are still outside. The drives should have been in this room. I forced the office door with a pry bar from the garage. The frame split near the latch. Inside, the file cabinet stood against the far wall. The same cabinet from the photograph. Its upper drawer was open. Empty hanging folders leaned at different angles. Dust covered the bottom except for a clean rectangle the size of a ledger. Someone had removed something recently. Leah set her folder on the desk. Grant said he kept no records here. He said more than that. I handed her the pre-transfer certification. She read the pre-transfer certification slowly. No keys, confidential files, secured materials, or business records were delivered to Grantvale or his representatives before the recorded transfer date. Her eyes stopped at my signature. You signed this after you moved that cabinet inside. Yes. Why? He owed my company $86,000. Payroll was due. He said the cabinet contained staging invoices and would be removed before the transfer. And you believed him? I believed I could correct it later. That is not an answer. It was the one I used. She placed the document flat on the desk. Did you correct it? No. The house settled around us with a soft wooden pop. Leah turned toward the windows. So if these records connect to him, admitting they were here also exposes you. Yes, and you brought me anyway. I should have told you at the depot. But you didn't. No. She nodded once. Not forgiveness. Acknowledgement. Then she began checking the empty folders. Most labels had been removed. One remained near the back. Community Housing Consultants. Leah pulled it free. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Her name appeared in the upper right corner. Lee Turner. Financial Workflow Sample. She sat down without finding the chair behind her. It struck the back of her knees and caught her. I took the page before it slipped from her hand. It was a spreadsheet template. Project code, vendor, invoice date, approval route, disbursement status. Neat columns. Conditional notes. A footer with her initials. You made this? For a job application. Her voice had changed. Grant said his company needed someone after the election. He asked me to show him how I organized development expenses. When? February. The document had been printed in January. I pointed to the date in the footer. Leah leaned closer. That's impossible. Could he have found an older version online? No. I built it for him. The paper trembled between her fingers. Grant had possessed her work before he asked her to create it. That meant the relationship had not led him to her skills. Her skills had led him to her. She opened her folder and searched through the letters with growing speed. Pages slid across the desk. One fell near my boot. I picked it up. It was a transfer confirmation. $28,000. Recipient: Vale Community Renewal, LLC. Leah stopped moving. You covered the statement yesterday, I said. I told myself it was for the house. What did he call it? A shared reserve. Closing costs. Furniture. Did you sign an agreement? He sent one electronically. Did you read it? Her jaw tightened. I read what appeared on the screen. That isn't what I asked. No. The answer hurt her more than my question did. She took the confirmation from me and smoothed the bent corner against the desk. I kept thinking one more act of trust would make all the earlier ones look reasonable. I had done the same thing with Grant's invoices. One signature to protect payroll. 1 month of silence to protect the company. One correction postponed until postponing became the decision. You were not foolish for believing someone who worked this hard to be believed, I said. Do not make it gentle. I'm not. He chose me because I would be useful. Yes. She closed her eyes briefly, then reopened them. And because he thought I would be ashamed enough to disappear. Yes. A vehicle moved on the road outside. We both turned. Through the office window, a white SUV with a Vale for Council sticker in the rear window slowed at the gate. It did not enter. The driver raised a phone toward the house. Leah gathered the papers. Did you tell anyone we were coming? No. The SUV rolled forward and vanished beyond the cottonwoods. My phone rang a second later. Deputy Hall. I answered. Mason, he said. Grant Vale has reported a break-in at his property. I watched Leah place the brass key beside my signed document. He has no legal connection to this property, I said. Hall paused. Then how did he know you were inside? Deputy Hall did not arrest us. That was the first thing he said when he arrived at the Cedar House. The second was, Grant has already called a press conference. Hall stood in the doorway, with rain darkening the shoulders of his uniform. Behind him, a county evidence technician photographed the broken office frame. A second deputy waited near the gate, while the driver of the white SUV spoke into her phone. 3 witnesses before noon, and none of them had been invited by us. Leah handed Hall the brass key in a clear plastic bag from my truck. He mailed it to me, she said. Hall did not take it immediately. Once I accept that, it becomes evidence. You may not get it back soon. Leah glanced at the mountain carved into the wooden tag. Good. The word surprised him. She released the bag. I gave him the spreadsheet, the transfer confirmation, Grant's photograph beside the cabinet, and the certification bearing my signature. Hall read the last page twice. You understand this may expose you to a false statement investigation. Yes. Leah turned toward me. She had known the signature was bad. Hearing its possible name made the cost heavier. Hall placed the document with the others. Grant's event starts at 1. Community Center. He says he wants to correct misinformation before rumors damage his family. He created the rumors, Leah said. Hall's jaw moved once. I'm telling you what he said. My phone rang before he finished. Dana Cho introduced herself as an attorney who handled civil fraud and protective order cases in Bozeman. Nora Bell had called her after seeing Grant's post. Do not speak publicly, Dana said after I summarized the house. Do not send messages. Do not answer reporters. Preserve everything. Leah stood by the empty cabinet, listening. What if he lies again? She asked. He will, Dana replied. That does not make a public argument useful. He is telling people I invented him, and he wants you emotional in a room full of cameras. Do not give him the version of you he has already sold. Leah pressed 2 fingers against the desk. So I sit quietly while he finishes? You build a case while he performs. The distinction was legally sound. It was also cruel. At 12:40, the parking lot outside the Millbrook Community Center was full. We should have gone home. Instead, Leah said she needed to see how far Grant was willing to go. I told myself I was there to keep her from standing alone. The truth was less generous. I needed to know whether Grant planned to use the pre-transfer certification. Inside, folding chairs faced a low stage decorated with campaign signs. Grant stood behind a lectern with Rebecca Vale beside him. She wore a cream coat and held his arm with both hands. Nora Bell sat in the 3rd row. Deputy Hall remained near the side wall. 2 local reporters adjusted cameras near the aisle. My foreman, Luis, stood at the back with several men from my crew. There were enough witnesses to turn any sentence into a permanent fact. The murmuring changed when Leah entered. No one shouted. That would have been easier. People simply moved their attention toward her, then away when she noticed. Grant waited until we sat near the rear. My family did not ask for this attention, he began. His voice carried the tired restraint of a man forced to be decent in public. Over the past 24 hours, an individual with whom I have never had a personal relationship has arrived in Millbrook, carrying fabricated correspondence and making increasingly coercive claims. Coercive. The word moved through the chairs in small reactions. A cough, a whisper, someone turning to get a better view of Leah. Grant displayed a screenshot on the projector. It showed one of Leah's messages. I gave up my job. I sold almost everything. You cannot disappear now. The messages before and after it were missing. Grant let the room read it. Rebecca lowered her eyes at precisely the right moment. Leah's hand closed around the seam of her coat. I leaned toward her. Dana said not to answer. I know what she said. Grant advanced to another image. A photograph of Leah's transfer confirmation appeared on the screen, but the description line had been enlarged. Voluntary development investment. She contributed money to a project after being clearly informed that it created no personal claim on me, my family, or any property. Leah started to rise. I touched the back of her chair. Not here. She turned on me. He is using my money to prove I knew he was lying. Every instinct I had practiced for years urged me to get her out. Avoid the scene. Call Dana. Deal with the facts in a safer room. Anna's old accusation returned with brutal clarity. My silence had always left someone else carrying the fight. Before I could answer, Grant changed the slide. My pre-transfer certification filled the screen. Luis swore softly behind us. Grant did not say my name at first. He let people find it. This document confirms that the Willow Road property contained no private records and had no connection to me before its lawful transfer. Yet, Mr. Reed entered that property today with this woman and damaged a secured interior door. Dozens of faces turned toward me. My old habit offered one more chance. Stay seated. Let the lawyer handle it. Do not make it worse. Grant placed both hands on the lectern. I have sympathy for grief. I have sympathy for loneliness. But sympathy cannot excuse predatory behavior. Predatory. This time the reaction was louder. A woman near Nora whispered, "Which one does he mean?" Grant heard her. He gave the smallest pause before answering. Both of them may have reasons for what they have done. Leah stood. Cameras shifted toward her. Dana's warning. Hall's investigation. The edited messages. My signature, every piece of the trap was visible now. Grant stepped back from the microphone as if frightened by her approach. Leah stopped in the aisle. You sent me that key, she said. Her voice did not shake. Rebecca tightened her grip on Grant's arm. A reporter lifted his phone higher. Grant smiled with regret. Miss Turner, this is not the place. You chose the place. A few people murmured. For 1 second, the polished expression failed to arrive on time. Then Grant nodded to a campaign aide. The speakers crackled. Leah's own voice filled the hall. It was a voicemail. I don't need anything grand. I just want one room that feels like mine. I want to wake up somewhere and know I'm not temporary anymore. The recording stopped. No promise from Grant followed it. No question, no context. Only Leah's private hope, released into a public room. Someone in the front row gave a soft, pitying sigh. Leah's shoulders changed at that sound. Anger she could have met. Pity entered deeper. Grant returned to the microphone. This is what fixation sounds like when kindness is misinterpreted as commitment. Leah did not cry. She did not argue. She walked toward the exit. I stood to follow, but the projector changed again. A new image appeared beside the pre-transfer certification. It was a photograph taken that morning through the Cedar House window. Leah was at the desk. I was beside her. Across the bottom, a caption had already been prepared. Widowed contractor and alleged stalker search private property for campaign material. Luis called my name. Grant watched me from the stage. He had not arranged the event merely to destroy Leah's credibility. He had built a place for mine beside it. The community center doors closed behind us, but Leah's recorded voice followed all the way to Willow Road. Neither of us spoke during the drive. Her phone kept lighting on the console. Unknown numbers. News alerts. A message from Nora. Another from Dana Cho marked urgent. Leah turned the screen face down. At home, she carried her folder into the apartment and tried to unlock the suitcase. The damaged latch caught beneath her thumb. She pulled harder, Stop, I said. I can open my own suitcase. You're about to tear the leather. It's mine to tear. The answer came sharper than she intended. She released the latch and pressed both palms against the lid. I took the small tool case from the laundry shelf and set it on the kitchen table. The apartment kitchen was barely wide enough for 2 chairs. A single bulb hung above the sink. Rain streaked the east window, turning the yard into gray shapes. Leah moved the folder away from me. I'm not taking anything. I know. Do you? I sat across from her and examined the latch. The metal tongue had bent when the wheel broke. Repairing it required pressure from the inside. I need the suitcase open. Her fingers stayed on the lid. Most people carried clothes in a suitcase. Leah carried proof that she had not imagined 8 months of her life. Open it yourself, I said. I'll fix the latch after. She entered the combination. The lid rose 2 inches before catching on a scarf. Inside were folded clothes, a toiletry bag, 2 framed photographs wrapped in a sweater, and bundles of letters tied with blue ribbon. Grant's promises had traveled with her like family belongings. She removed the scarf. I held the lid while she cleared the hinge. A drop of water fell from her sleeve onto the top letter. She wiped it away immediately. I'm sorry he played that recording, I said. He had worse ones he could have played. My hand stopped on the latch. Leah took out her phone and opened a folder of saved audio files. There are 37. You kept them. I kept everything that made the decision to come here feel reasonable. She selected one but did not press play. In this one, I tell him I'm afraid I'm making a mistake. He says fear is what lonely people use to sabotage happiness. That sounds rehearsed. It worked anyway. She placed the phone beside the brass key receipt Hall had given her. I knew pieces didn't fit, she continued. The 2 email addresses, the dates on the house photographs, his refusal to call from home. I told myself secrecy was the price of being involved with someone in public life. You already told me that. Not all of it. I put the screwdriver down. 3 months earlier, an email had arrived from an address Leah did not recognize. The sender claimed to be a former bookkeeper for Vale Community Renewal. She warned Leah that Grant was married, that the housing project was under review, and that he had used other people's names on expense records. Leah had not replied to the woman. She had forwarded the email to Grant. He said she had stolen from the company, Leah said. He told me she was trying to punish him after being fired. What was her name? Maya Ellis. The name was familiar. Maya had approved 2 of my early invoices before Grant replaced her. What happened after you sent it? Her email account disappeared. Grant said his attorney had handled it. You gave him the warning. Yes. And the person who warned you? Yes. The refrigerator motor clicked off. Leah folded the scarf into a smaller square, then unfolded it again. I wasn't only fooled, Mason. I helped him close a door on someone else, because believing her would have cost me the future I wanted. There it was. Not innocence. Not villainy. A selfish choice made by someone frightened enough to call it trust. Did you save the email? I deleted it. From trash, too? He asked me to. The admission left her face exposed in a way the public recording had not. I could have told her Grant was responsible for what he did with the information. That would have been true and incomplete. Maya may have been trying to protect you, I said. I know. She may have lost more than an email account. I know. No defense. No request for absolution. Leah pushed the suitcase toward me. I straightened the metal tongue with pliers and reset the spring. The work took less than 5 minutes. Neither of us filled them. When the latch clicked cleanly, she tested it twice. Thank you. You don't have to thank me for every repaired object. I'm trying to keep the debts countable. I closed the tool case. They aren't debts. That is easy to say when you are the one providing everything. Her words found the part of me that had remained unnamed. The room, the food, the repaired wheel, standing beside her at the community center. Each act looked decent from the outside. Some of it was decent. Some of it was penance. I recognized the mountain tag at the depot, I said. You told me that. I recognized more than the tag. She waited. The scratch near the key teeth was mine. I tested that key after the lock was installed. Her expression hardened. You knew it opened W17 before we went there. I was nearly certain, but you let me turn it. Yes. Why? Because if I opened the door, it became my decision. If you opened it, I could tell myself I was only following the evidence. Leah leaned back. The distance between our chairs was less than 2 feet, but the table felt wider. I used you to make my confession easier, I said. Then I called it helping. The rain struck harder against the glass. You didn't lie about who I was, she said. You just left me alone inside his version until you knew which truth would cost you less. I accepted it because she had earned the right to say worse. She rose and carried the repaired suitcase to the wall. On her way back, her sleeve caught on the chair. I reached out at the same moment she did. Our hands met over the wooden backrest. Neither moved. Up close, exhaustion had taken the polish from her anger. A faint line marked her cheek where rain had dried. Her breathing changed, and mine answered before judgment could. She turned her hand beneath mine. The gesture was small enough to deny. I did not. Then the phone on the table vibrated. We separated. Dana's name appeared on the screen. Leah answered. Dana spoke quickly. Grant's attorney had filed an emergency petition accusing Leah of harassment, attempted extortion, and unlawful entry. A second complaint named me and requested an immediate review of my contractor's license. There's more, Dana said. Vale Community Renewal has reported the $28,000 as disputed investment capital. Your bank may freeze the remaining funds while they investigate. Leah gripped the table edge. When? Possibly today. The apartment suddenly looked different. Not shelter. Leverage. A place Grant could describe as proof that Leah and I had planned this together. Dana continued. You both need separate representation. And Leah, you need somewhere to stay that Grant cannot characterize as payment, coercion, or a hidden relationship. Leah's gaze moved from the repaired suitcase to me. The question neither of us had spoken now had legal weight. Was she in my house because she chose to trust me, or because I had made myself the only door still open? Dana arrived at Willow Road with 2 legal pads, a scanner, and the expression of someone who had already found 3 ways we could make matters worse. She chose the dining table instead of the apartment. Leah sat across from me. The repaired suitcase stood near the front door. Dana placed separate folders in front of us. From this point forward, you are not a unit, she said. You have overlapping facts and different liabilities. If either of you protects the other by withholding something, Grant benefits. Leah opened her folder. What happens to my account? Your bank placed a temporary hold on outgoing transfers. They have not seized the money, but you cannot access most of it while the investment dispute is reviewed. How much can I use? $412. Leah wrote the number down. She did not react until the pen tore through the paper. Dana turned to me. The licensing board scheduled an emergency review for Monday. The county also suspended Reed Restoration from bidding on public work until the pre-transfer certification issue was resolved. I had 3 municipal contracts pending. How long? Best case, weeks. Worst case, your license is suspended while they investigate. My phone buzzed with a message from Luis. The crew is asking whether there will be work next week. I locked the screen, Dana noticed. Tell them before they hear it from Grant. 22 people depended on payroll arriving Friday. Leah closed her folder. I'm leaving today. No, I said. Dana held up one hand. Let her finish. I'll move to Nora's boarding house. She said she has a room. You can't pay for it, I said. I can pay for 2 weeks. You have $400. That is still money. And after 2 weeks? Leah's chair moved back an inch. That is not your decision. She was right, and the truth irritated me because it removed the usefulness of arguing. Dana leaned toward her. Moving is not an admission that you did anything wrong. It reduces Grant's ability to describe this house as compensation or proof of a prior relationship. Leah nodded. The apartment had become a weapon because Grant had named it one. By 1:30, she had packed the groceries she bought with cash, the blue ribbon letters, and the 2 photographs from her suitcase. She left the soup and apples in the refrigerator. I carried the suitcase as far as the porch. She took the handle from me. I can manage it now. The repaired wheel rolled smoothly over the boards. Nora Bell's boarding house stood above the old pharmacy downtown. Its front window displayed lace curtains and a handwritten sign advertising weekly rooms. 2 reporters waited across the street. Dana drove Leah around the rear alley. I used the front entrance. Nora opened the door before I knocked. If one of those people points a camera through my window, I'll charge them rent, she said. She led us upstairs to a narrow room with a bed, a washstand, and a view of the brick wall next door. Leah placed her suitcase beside the dresser. The space was clean but smaller than the office at W17 where Grant had stored her name. Nora handed Leah a key on a red plastic tag. Bathroom is at the end of the hall. Breakfast at 7. No campaign people inside unless they need a room and have cash. Leah managed a tired smile. When Nora left, I set a paper bag on the dresser. What is that? Leah asked. Coffee. Bread. Peanut butter. I did not ask you to bring food. You left most of yours. That was deliberate. So was this. Her expression closed. Every useful act I offered now carried the shape of control. I picked up the bag. I'll take it. She caught the folded top before I could move, our fingers pressed against opposite sides of the paper. Leave the coffee, she said. I released it. The bed, the locked door, and the reporters outside made the small room feel more intimate than it had any right to. Leah stepped closer. I could smell rain in her coat and the coffee grounds through the bag. Her eyes moved to my mouth. Mine answered. I touched her wrist. She did not pull away. Then I saw the red key tag hanging from her other hand. A temporary room. $412. A town that believed she was dangerous. A man offering food, legal help, and a place to return. Wanting her in that moment would have been easy. Trusting the reason would not. I let go. Not while this house is the only place you can go. This isn't your house. You know what I mean. Pain crossed her face before anger covered it. You think I don't know the difference between gratitude and desire? I think Grant spent 8 months making every kind thing sound like a contract. And now you're deciding what my feelings mean for me. The words hit cleanly. I'm deciding what mine are allowed to ask from you. She turned toward the window. The reporters across the street had noticed my truck. One raised a camera. Leah pulled the curtain shut. I don't want to be another thing you repair because you cannot repair Anna, she said. I had not told her enough about my wife for that sentence to be accidental. She had seen the covered furniture, the labeled cupboards, the rooms left untouched. She had seen penance wearing the clothes of kindness. You're not, I said. Then prove it by letting me stand somewhere you didn't build for me. I left the coffee and took the bread and peanut butter. Outside, one reporter called my name. Another asked whether Leah and I had planned to expose Grant before she arrived. I did not answer. At the workshop, Louise had gathered the crew around the break table. Work boots left muddy half-moons across the concrete floor. I told them about the public contract suspension, the licensing review, and the possibility that Friday's payroll would be the last full one for a while. No one interrupted. Caleb Ross stood near the rear door. He had worked for me for 9 years before leaving, after an argument over Grant's development. I had not known Louise called him. Caleb folded his arms. You signed for that cabinet, he said. Yes. You told us the veil job was clean. I was wrong. You were warned. The crew shifted. Caleb had warned me. He had also threatened to walk off the project, and I had called him unreliable in front of the others. I should have listened. That does not give people their missed wages back. No. Louise placed the payroll list on the table. We had enough reserve for 1 full cycle and half of the next. I sold 2 unused trailers. I canceled the order for a new lift. The proceeds bought another week. At 4, Dana called. Grant's attorney had offered terms. Leah would receive access to her remaining funds if she signed a statement acknowledging that their correspondence was personal fantasy, that the $28,000 was a voluntary investment, and that Mason Reed had encouraged her allegations after she arrived. He is offering her own money in exchange for her name, I said. Yes. What did she say? She said no. Grant had expected pressure to separate us. Instead, it had removed every reason Leah had to stay close, except choice. My phone vibrated again. A message from an unknown number contained 1 sentence. Ask Caleb what he kept from the Willow Road job. Attached was a photograph of a blue ledger on the passenger seat of Caleb Ross's truck. The photograph of the blue ledger had been taken inside Caleb Ross's truck. I knew the cracked vinyl seat. I had ridden beside him through 9 winters before our argument over Grant's project ended his time at Reed Restoration. The unknown number did not answer when I called. Caleb did. You have something from Willow Road, I said. A metal door slammed behind him. You mean the thing you told everyone did not exist? Where are you? Not your employee anymore. This is not about that. It became about that when my name appeared on a county investigator's call sheet. He hung up. Dana told me not to chase him. She also told me a judge had signed a temporary no-contact order against Leah. Grant had included the community center confrontation, the entry at W17, and 23 messages Leah sent during their 8-month relationship. The order did not decide whether Grant was telling the truth. It only made his version enforceable until the hearing. By noon, a deputy delivered the papers to Nora's boarding house. Leah signed for them in the front hall while 2 guests watched from the stairs. Nora stood beside her with a dish towel twisted between both hands. The order prohibited Leah from approaching Grant, Rebecca, their home, campaign office, or any event where Grant was scheduled to appear. It also required her to surrender any access device connected to property he claimed an interest in. The brass key was already in evidence. Grant had asked for it anyway. "He wants the order to make the key sound like his," Leah said. Dana gathered the pages. "He wants every official document to repeat his vocabulary." Nora unlocked the front desk drawer and removed an envelope. "This came for you." There was no return address. Inside was a copy of the email Maya Ellis had sent Leah 3 months earlier. The message Leah believed she had deleted. At the bottom, someone had added a handwritten sentence. "You were not the first." Dana photographed the page before anyone touched it again. "Who had your email password?" she asked. "Grant. He said he needed to secure the account after Maya contacted me." Leah sat on the edge of the hall chair. Grant had not merely asked her to delete the warning. He had kept a copy. A car horn sounded outside. Through the lace curtain, 3 people from Millbrook Civic Watch stood on the sidewalk holding printed signs. "Keep predators out of Millbrook." Nora pulled the curtain closed. "I will call the police. They are on public property," Dana said. "They are misspelling my town in front of my business." The joke failed to lift anything. Leah folded the no-contact order along its existing crease. "I should leave." "No," I said. Dana's pen stopped. Leah raised her eyes. "You do not get to decide that." "I know. Then stop answering before I finish." I put both hands on the back of a chair. She continued. "If I leave Millbrook, Grant will say I ran because the order exposed me. If I stay here, Nora loses guests. Your company loses work. Everyone who stands near me becomes part of his accusation. That is what he wants you to calculate." "It is still happening." Nora set the towel on the desk. "My empty rooms are my problem." Leah's mouth tightened. Kindness had become another bill she could not pay. My phone vibrated. Louise had sent a photograph from the workshop. 6 members of the crew stood beside Caleb near the break table. Beneath it was a single line. "You need to come now." The workshop doors were open when I arrived. Wind pushed sawdust across the concrete. Caleb stood at my desk with the blue ledger beneath one hand. Luis and 5 crew members formed a loose half-circle around him. None wore work belts. They had come to decide whether they still had jobs or whether I deserved to keep mine. Caleb opened the ledger. Each page listed a vendor, invoice amount, approval code, and payment destination. Several vendors were companies I knew. Others existed only as post office boxes. My contractor certification number appeared beside 12 entries. "I found this in the file cabinet the night before the transfer," Caleb said. "I took it because you refused to stop the job. You told me there were false invoices. I told you Grant was using our completion reports to release money for work nobody did. You never showed me this. You fired me before I could. I told you to leave the site. In front of the crew, you called me unstable." The word landed harder than a shout. I had used Grant's method before I understood it was his. Caleb turned the ledger toward Luis. "Ask him why." Everyone waited. "Because Grant owed us $86,000, I said. "Because payroll was due." Because Caleb was angry, and it was easier to make his anger the problem than admit he might be right. Luis removed his cap. "You knew enough to doubt the paperwork." "Yes." "And signed anyway." "Yes." One of the younger carpenters walked out. The others stayed, but staying was not forgiveness. Caleb closed the ledger. "County investigators offered me immunity for bringing this in. Dana had warned me that good evidence could arrive through someone who wanted me punished." "Take the offer," I said. His eyebrows lifted. "Give them everything. You think agreeing now fixes what you did?" "No." That answer disappointed his anger. He wanted resistance because resistance would make the choice simple. My phone rang. Leah. I stepped into the supply cage to answer. Her voice was controlled. The bank froze the rest of my account. I pressed my thumb against the wire mesh. "I'll cover." "No." The word stopped me. "I'm not asking you for money. Dana found a women's legal aid fund that can cover the boarding house. I called 3 bookkeeping firms. One agreed to interview me remotely. You did all that today? I needed something Grant had not arranged. A truck started outside. Caleb was leaving with the ledger. Leah breathed once before speaking again. Mason, maybe I should go back east after the hearing. My old answer arrived dressed as sacrifice. Maybe you should. Grant had found my company, Nora's business, Caleb's anger, and Leah's bank account. Every person near the truth paid for it. Letting Leah leave could be called protection. It could also be the same silence I had practiced for years. I won't ask you to stay, I said. Her breath caught. But I will not tell you to disappear so the rest of us can feel safer. Nothing moved on the line. Then my phone chimed with an incoming message from Grant. Not his attorney, Grant himself. I opened it while Leah was still connected. You need to control her before Caleb gives her the blue ledger. A second message appeared almost immediately. Wrong number. Disregard. Grant had never been told Caleb possessed a ledger. He had never been told it was blue. Leah, I said, do not leave Nora's. What happened? Outside, Caleb's truck stopped halfway through the gate. Another message arrived. This one contained no mistake. If that ledger reaches the hearing, everyone will learn what you signed. For months, Grant had treated my shame like a lock. He had finally pulled the handle too hard, and Caleb, who trusted neither of us, was driving away with the only key. The county hearing took place Monday morning in the chamber where Grant had launched his campaign 6 months earlier. No banners this time. Only 3 commissioners, 2 attorney tables, and enough folding chairs to hold everyone who had decided our worst choices were public property. Caleb sat near the aisle with the blue ledger inside a clear evidence sleeve. Luis and 9 members of my crew occupied the back row. Nora sat beside Leah. Dana placed Leah at a separate table from me. We were not a unit. Grant arrived with Rebecca and 2 attorneys. He wore a navy suit and the expression of a man attending an inconvenience that would soon apologize for itself. Before the chair called the hearing to order, he stopped beside me. This can still end quietly. I kept my hands on the statement in front of me. You stopped offering quiet when you posted her face. You have employees, Mason. Think beyond yourself. I finally am. His eyes flicked toward Caleb's evidence sleeve. The county attorney began with my pre-transfer certification. I did not wait for Dana to soften it. I signed a false statement. A murmur moved through the chairs. The chair asked whether I understood the possible consequences. Yes. Suspension, fines, loss of contracts, and possible prosecution. Grant's attorney rose. Mr. Reed is trading a limited professional violation for credibility in a personal dispute. No. I'm removing the part he can use to control me. I explained the unpaid $86,000, the threatened payroll, Caleb's warning, and the cabinet I helped place inside W-17. I did not call Grant persuasive or myself desperate. I said what I had done. His attorney held up the ledger. Your contractor certification number appears beside 12 payments. Yes. So Mr. Vale believed you were a willing participant. Grant leaned back. That was his preferred story. 2 dishonest contractors inventing a victim to save themselves. I knew one document was false, I said. I did not know about the 12 payments, Caleb tried to tell me. I chose the explanation that protected my company. Convenient. No. Costly. I placed my contractor license on the table. I am surrendering this pending investigation. Luis lowered his head. Grant sat forward. He had expected fear to keep my answers negotiable. Once the license was gone, he had less to threaten. The chair called Leah Turner. Grant's attorney began before she settled. You sent my client more than 20 messages after he asked you to stop contacting him. After he failed to meet me at the depot. Yes or no? Yes. You transferred $28,000 voluntarily. I transferred it because he said it would pay closing costs on our house. No signed promise of marriage exists. No. No deed lists you as an owner. No. No photograph shows you together. No. Each answer removed the kind of proof people expected love to leave. The attorney displayed Leah's message. I gave up my job. I sold almost everything. You cannot disappear now. So this was personal to you. Yes, but not to Mr. Vale. Leah folded her hands. That is what he needs you to believe. He did not choose me because he wanted a relationship, she continued. He created a relationship because he wanted access. Dana displayed a timeline. A recovered internal email from Maya Ellis was dated 3 months before Grant first contacted Leah. Attached were Leah's resume, her mother's obituary, and a post from an online grief support group. A monitor beside the commissioners turned on. Maya appeared from an office in Helena. She testified that she had found Leah's information in a folder labeled Outreach. It contained 6 names recently bereaved women with administrative or financial experience. 2 had received messages from aliases tied to Vale Community Renewal. Grant's hand tightened around his pen. Rebecca shifted her chair away from him. Dana displayed the workflow sample found at W17. Its January print date appeared beside Grant's February request that Leah create water from scratch. Then came the transfer records. Leah's money entered Vale Community Renewal on March 3rd. Within 48 hours, most of it paid consulting invoices listed in the Blue Ledger. 3 recipient companies shared the campaign treasurer's mailing address. Grant's attorney stood. My client cannot be responsible for every administrative overlap. The chair asked Grant whether he had accessed W17 before the transfer. No. Possessed a key? No. Stored records there? No. Dana displayed the photograph of Grant beside the cabinet. That could be a copy, he said. No one had called it an original. Dana paused. So you recognize it? His jaw shifted. I recognize the manipulation. Caleb supplied the original file. Its metadata placed Grant at W17 6 weeks before my pre-transfer certification. Leah held up the evidence receipt for the brass key. The key, he mailed me. Open W17. A mass-produced tag proves nothing, Grant's attorney said. The tag does not. Dana displayed the key cut record. The locksmith had cut 3 matching keys at Grant's assistant's request. One had been signed out to the assistant. One was now in evidence. The third was unaccounted for. Grant answered before anyone questioned him. She could have found the key in the cabinet with the Blue Ledger. The chamber stopped. The chair leaned forward. What Blue Ledger? Grant's attorney touched his sleeve. Too late. Grant stared at Leah. You entered that office and built this around me. The cabinet was empty, Leah said. Because Caleb took the ledger. Dana faced the commissioners. Mr. Vale was never told where the ledger was found. Grant shoved his chair back. He stole company property. The legs scraped across the floor. Rebecca flinched. Grant pointed at Caleb. You were paid to remove it before the transfer. The county attorney stood. Are you saying you instructed Mr. Ross to remove business records from W17? Grant's mouth opened. Nothing polished came out. His attorney requested a recess. The chair denied it. Rebecca rose. Grant caught her wrist. Sit down. The command carried through his microphone. She pulled free. Did you use my phone to call her? This is not the time. You said she found our photographs online. Rebecca, you sent me to stand beside you while you called her sick. Grant glanced toward the cameras. Then the commissioners, searching for the version of the room that still belonged to him. It was gone. Leah stood when the chair gave permission. She faced the people who had shared her photograph and accepted Grant's language because it arrived before hers. I ignored warnings, she said. I sent one back to him, and Maya paid for that choice before I did. I transferred money without reading what was hidden behind the screen. Those are my mistakes. Then she faced Grant. But my mistakes do not become your innocence. He laughed once, too loudly. You came here because you wanted a home. Yes, you wanted to believe me. Yes, you built your own fantasy. Leah said his depot statement beside the Blue Ledger. No. You built a system where every response proved your story. If I cried, I was unstable. If I got angry, I was dangerous. If I stayed quiet, you spoke for me. Grant's face hardened. Her final sentence was quiet enough that the microphones had to carry it. You don't get to call me unstable because your lie stopped obeying you. No one applauded. That would have turned the truth into another performance. The commissioners referred the financial records to state investigators, suspended Grant's pending development permits, and continued the review of my license. That afternoon, Dana used the hearing record to ask a district judge to dissolve the property restrictions supporting Grant's emergency order. Grant left through a side door with his attorneys. Rebecca did not follow. Reporters crowded the aisle around Leah. I stayed at my table. She did not need me to speak for her. She had taken her story back in her own voice. The cost of mine still waited beside my surrendered license. In the 6 months after the hearing, the brass key remained in county evidence. Dana showed us a photograph of it inside an evidence bag during one of our meetings. The mountain-shaped tag looked smaller behind plastic. Grant had not been convicted. The state had charged him with fraud, evidence tampering, and misuse of campaign funds, but his attorneys had delayed the first trial date. 3 women from Maya's outreach folder had given statements. 2 more had refused. Leah recovered $11,000. The rest had moved through companies that existed mostly as mailboxes and signatures. My contractor's license was suspended for 6 months. The county fined me, and I lost every public contract scheduled for that year. Luis kept half the crew working on private repairs. The others found temporary jobs. 1 did not come back. Caleb never returned either. He testified, accepted immunity, and started working for a commercial builder in Helena. Before he left Millbrook, he stopped by the workshop and placed my old tape measure on the desk. "You left this in my truck 9 years ago," he said. "I thought you kept it." "I did." That was the closest either of us came to an apology. Leah stayed at Nora's boarding house for 7 weeks. The legal aid fund covered 4. A remote bookkeeping firm hired her, and her first paychecks covered the remaining weeks. Her first paycheck was smaller than the amount Grant had taken, but she printed the deposit confirmation and pinned it above the narrow desk in her room. "This one is mine," she told me. We did not start dating because the hearing ended. We waited until her account was released, until she had her own income, and until she could have bought a bus ticket east without asking anyone. Then, one Saturday morning, she called and asked whether I wanted coffee. "Is this gratitude?" I asked. "No." "Pity?" "Definitely not." "Legal strategy?" I can hang up. I met her 10 minutes later. Dating Leah did not make the story disappear. People still watched when we entered a restaurant together. A woman at the grocery store once moved her cart away after recognizing Leah from Grant's first post. Leah said nothing until we reached the parking lot. Then she checked the car door twice before getting in. I did not tell her the woman was ignorant, or that none of it mattered. It mattered because Leah had to live inside the part that remained after the truth became old news. I only unlocked the door again, so she could hear it. By autumn, the suspension on my license ended. The company returned under conditions: quarterly audits, independent approval on public certifications, and no work connected to the Vale investigation. I accepted every condition. Luis moved the certification stamp out of my office and into a shared cabinet where 2 signatures were required. The first time I reached for it automatically, he shut the drawer. "2 people," he said. "2 people," I agreed. The east room at my house remained closed until Leah asked to see it. It had been Anna's sewing room. Her fabric boxes still lined one wall. A half-finished curtain lay folded on the table beneath the window. I had avoided the room because opening it felt like erasing her. Keeping it untouched had erased something else. Leah stood in the doorway without entering. "You don't have to give me this room." "I'm not giving it to you." "That sounds promising." "I'm asking whether you want to rent it." She studied my face. "At market rate?" "At a rate Dana will not describe as coercive." That made her laugh. The sound caught me harder than I expected. For a moment, it was the community center again, people turning, a private thing becoming public. My hand tightened around the doorknob. Leah noticed. She did not apologize for laughing. She placed her palm over mine until my fingers loosened. "Too much?" she asked. "Not yours." We packed Anna's fabric carefully. Some went to her sister. Some stayed in the closet. Leah refused to move the blue vase from the dining room until I did it myself. She set up 2 desks beneath the east-facing window and registered Turner Ledger Services from that address. The first client was Nora. The second was a rancher who said he did not care what the internet thought, as long as Leah could explain why his payroll numbers were wrong. By December, she had 12 clients. When Nora needed the room for winter travelers, Leah rented the apartment over my garage under a month-to-month lease Dana drafted. She paid market rent from her own account. The apartment had its own new lock, and neither of us kept a spare key to the other's space. After we began dating, I offered her the plain steel key from the depot as access to the main house. She accepted it, but kept it in her desk instead of on her key ring. Her suitcase stayed beneath the bed in the apartment, over the garage. It remained packed for the first month. Then the clothes moved into drawers, but the suitcase stayed open. One evening, I passed the room and saw it standing inside the closet, empty. I did not ask what it meant. The next morning, I placed coffee beside her keyboard. Rain pressed against the east window, and the lower sash had swollen in its frame. Leah pushed at it with both hands. "It sticks when it rains," I said. She gave it one more try. Then I guess we'll have to fix it. We? She turned from the window. This is the part where you pretend you didn't hear me. I'm trying something new. What? Waiting until you say exactly what you mean. She reached into her desk drawer and placed a plain steel key on the table. It was the same plain steel key I had given her at the depot, the one she had returned when she moved to Nora's and accepted again only after she had her own lease. I don't need this because I have nowhere else to go, she said. I know. I have money. I have clients. Dana gave me the name of an apartment complex in Bozeman. I know. I still check the locks twice. I know that too. Her thumb moved over the uncarved metal. I want to stay. No wedding. No promise that the people who believed Grant would change their minds. No clean ending waited behind the sentence. I picked up the key and placed it back in her palm. Then stay because you can leave. Leah closed her fingers around it. Outside, rain continued against the glass. The window remained stuck. Grant's trial was months away. My company was smaller. Her money was not fully recovered. Some doors would always require more effort than they should. But the key in her hand did not belong to a fantasy. It opened a house she had chosen with the truth in front of her. Some people do not destroy you by shouting. They do it by writing a version of you that everyone else can believe. And sometimes, the person who helps you survive is not the one who fixes your life. It is the one who refuses to let the lie speak alone. If this story stayed with you, tell me in the comments. Have you ever had to fight for the truth of your own life? And if you want more stories like this, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.